Alright y'all, welcome back to the channel and do some more upland game pattern testing. It's been quite a while since we've done anything like this, but I've actually had a couple of you guys requesting to see this specific combination, so I figured I'd bring it out here and see what it can do, because it's definitely pretty interesting and not something that you might typically think of for a combination, but if it works out, then that's definitely a bonus for us, that's for sure. But as for the shell we've got here today, I brought out some of the Winchester Super X steel loads. These are a 12 gauge, 2 3/4 inch, 1 ounce payload of steel number 6 shot, moving about 1325 feet per second. And this is definitely kind of oriented towards those areas where you have to use steel even for doves and quail and pheasant and stuff like that. Either way, steel 6s, definitely a pretty interesting little shell here that we tested a little while back as well, with some pretty decent looking results from what I can remember. So how can they do through today's combination? And as for that setup we've got here today, I brought out the Remington 1187, but a couple of you guys wanted to see it through this choke. This is a Patternmaster Black Mamba. It's their 690 constriction, and this is kind of their do-all choke. You can shoot steel waterfowl loads through it. You can shoot lead turkey shells or TSS turkey shells through it. You can shoot buckshot through it. So you can kind of do a little bit of everything with it. And you guys wanted to see how it does with some smaller steel 6s for like dove hunting or something. So we're going to find out what happens. Now I do also have the Federal Upland steel loads as well. If you guys would like to see those tested through this setup or something similar, or the Winchester versus the Federal shells or something like that, then by all means let me know and we can do that test as well. But as for today's test, we're going to do it the same as we usually do these, which means I have 3 big sheets of paper set up downrange. We're going to take one shot at 20 yards, one shot at 30 yards, and one shot at 40 yards. All of them, of course, will be across the chronograph as well, so we can see our velocity. But after we take those shots, we'll go down and we'll draw some different size circles on the actual paper down there, so we can get an idea of how these actually pattern through this choke at different ranges. So enough talking, let's get you guys set up with a view of these targets, and we'll go 20, 30, 40, and then check out all the results and see what we actually got. So let's head over here and take these shots and see what happens with these Winchester steel 6s through this Black Mamba 690. Alright, so let's take a quick look at our chronograph numbers before we go down and look at our results. The box claim is 1325, and I believe we were running a little bit above their claim. So obviously, shell number 1 gave us 1386, shell number 2 gave us 1358, and shell number 3 gave us 1389. So mid to high 1300s is what we were running, and those velocities gave us an average of 1377. So what is that, 52 above their claim? We do have a 28-inch barrel out of that gun, so chances are they might have tested it through like a 24 or 26 inch over under or side by side type of shotgun. But either way, for steel 6s, that is pretty close to what they're saying we should be seeing, and for doves or something, that's perfectly fine. But let's go down range and see what kind of a pattern we actually got out of them through that Black Mamba. Alright, so let's look at our targets here and actually see what we got. I know the sun is glaring a little bit off of this 20-yard paper, but we can still very clearly see what we want to see. And as you can see here, that is a very condensed overall pattern. I mean, it's 20 yards. It should kind of look like this. I didn't even bother to count or circle how many pellets are in that 10-inch circle that I drew on there, because it's pretty much all of your pattern. We do have a couple outside of that around the edges here, but still 95 or more % of your pattern is within a 10-inch circle at 20 yards. So very hot, dense looking pattern there. Would get the job done all day long. But if you're shooting close range doves or something, that might be a little bit too tight for you. Either way, what we do see is a pretty even spread, which is definitely a good thing moving out a little bit farther here. So our 20-yard paper looks very solid. Alright, so here's our 30-yard paper now, and as you can see, we still have a very good looking pattern, but it has started to open up quite a bit at the same time, which is to be expected. Now this time I drew a 10-inch circle in our core and a 30-inch circle surrounding it, and we have a very nice uniform even looking pattern here. There's really no voids in there that I'm worried about at all, and even at 30 yards, that might still be a little bit too tight for some people if you're shooting smaller birds like doves or something like that, because still still, look at that 30-inch circle, and we only have a handful, maybe 5 or 6 pellets outside of that at 30 yards. That's still a very tight pattern for a lot of upland game type of scenarios. But inside of this 10-inch circle here, we have a beautifully even core, and that gave us 156 pellets inside of that 10-inch circle there. So a large amount of pellets, a very nice hot core area, very uniform looking pattern all day long, but still might be a touch on the tight side for some people if you're wing shooting, but it's still holding an even pattern, which is always a good thing to see. But now as for our 40-yard pattern here, we were just a touch low on the paper, unfortunately, but we can still see what we need to see. Definitely opened up quite a bit more than the 30-yard paper. And now this is getting to where I kind of like my dove style patterns at. If I had this pattern at 30 yards and a little bit more broad at 40, I'd be pretty happy. But still, this is a very, very solid pattern. Very evenly spread across the paper. There's no huge big noticeable gaps or voids in there. In our 10-inch circle core down there, we had 64 pellets, which is plenty good enough for anything that would be in there. Outside of that, we still have the vast majority of our pattern within a 30-inch circle there. We really don't have a whole lot around the edges. There are some, but still, for a 40-yard pattern out of steel 6s, that's great. I am definitely liking what I'm seeing out of this combination. Very uniform, even patterns across the board. So if nothing else, this can be a very reliable and consistent looking performer for you, it would seem. That's for sure. Okay, and here's the wad out of that shell, and as you can see, it opened up pretty much perfectly even. There's nothing stuck down in there, no rips or tears or pinholes or snags or anything like that. Very, very good looking wad, and for being a 690 that has gas over constriction, it's definitely not too tight of a choke. As you can see, we barely have any kind of smudging or smearing on the sides of this wad. So very good looking here, definitely nothing I'm concerned about, and clearly, I think the combination of these shells, how they're loaded, this wad and that Black Mamba choke is definitely working out, because they gave us some very nice uniform even looking patterns, that's for sure. So the wad looks very good, nothing to worry about here, that's for sure. All right, y'all. Well, what did you think about that performance right there? Definitely looking very good. I really like how even and consistent the pattern is, because if you know your leads, even though it might be just a touch on the tighter side for some of you dove hunters or upland bird hunters or something like that, if you know your leads, you're absolutely going to smoke something with that kind of a pattern out to 40 yards all day long. But either way, definitely very impressive looking results, and I'd say that combination really worked pretty well together. So now I'm curious to see what that Black Mamba would do with the federal upland steel shells as well, if they would be the same or any different. Let me know if that's something you guys want to see. But either way, let me know down in the comments, is that about what you expected to see? Were you a little surprised? Would you hunt with a pattern like that? Or is that a little bit too tight for you for what you would use these shells for? Or is that absolutely perfect for what you're looking for? So let me know your thoughts about it down below. But with that being said, I've got some more testing to get done for you guys, so I'm going to get back to it. As always, we have the channel Instagram as well as the mailbox. You can send stuff if you'd like. All that information will be in the description down below if you're interested in it, but I'm going to get back to it, so I'll see y'all in the next one.